I love the fragrance of flowers in spring, the ocean waves in summer, the red maple leaves in autumn, the drifting snow in winter, and you, every single day. Hi everyone, I'm Julie. Just as the bank sent me a paycheck notification, my blind date happened to sit down. He accidentally caught sight of the text. This month's income, $400. He was dressed up like a proper gentleman, but the disappointment on his face was impossible to hide. Aren't you supposed to have a master's degree from a top university? How come you're only making $400? I flipped through the menu and said calmly, "Yeah, I live at home, 400 is enough for me." His expression went cold. "After taxes, I still take home over 1,000. You only make 400. How are we supposed to build a future?" I chuckled. "Sir, we've been here for less than 5 minutes, and you're already talking about building a future with me. Do you already have a house picked out?" To my surprise, he nodded. "Yes, I've got my eye on an apartment at Seaview Heights, about 860 square feet. With a down payment of $360,000, the monthly mortgage would still be around $1,100. I was speechless. "Wow, you've really thought this through. How much do you have saved for the down payment?" He answered proudly, $20,000. Your family would need to help with the rest. I burst out laughing. "Then you'd better not count on me. My paycheck's not much. I can't help you build your dream home." At that point, there was no need to continue. He pretended to take a call and bolted. The moment he left, my phone buzzed with several more deposit notifications. "Hello, your August salary has been deposited. Monthly bonus, $6,000. Quarterly commission, $12,000. Mutual housing fund contribution, $700. I nearly laughed out loud. Would it kill them to pay my base salary first? I immediately called Nate. I call him boss, but my tone never sounds like an employee's. "Boss, you have to give me a raise." Nate is a famous workaholic. When he's developing software, he'll go 3 days without sleep. He answered my call groggily. "What's wrong? Not enough money?" "Of course I've got enough. I'm also a shareholder. The dividends alone are more than I can spend. But I keep a low profile. Out there, people just see me as a part-time girl making $400 a month." I sighed. That blind date guy ditched me because he thought my salary was too low. I'm sitting here in this restaurant, all alone, boss. Why did I only get a base salary of $400 this month? He paused for a moment, then said in his deep, magnetic voice that tickled my ears, "I asked accounting to set it that way. Too many scammers out there. I don't want you getting targeted. In fact, 400 could still go lower. Next time, how about we make it 200? I like Nate, but I've never confessed, not in the past, and I don't plan to in the future. Because he already has his white moonlight. He's always liked Rachel, the class goddess who was talented in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. They were the perfect pair. If she hadn't been so determined to study abroad, they probably would have been married by now. After graduation, he started his own company. I followed him. In 3 years, I achieved financial freedom. But unrequited love feels like a life sentence. There's never a day of release. My aunt insisted on introducing me to blind dates. Nate knew about it. Watching me reapply my makeup, he frowned for a long time before finally reminding me, "Julie, be careful. Don't reveal your real financial situation. You can never truly know someone." That's why he had accounting lower my salary to 400. So thoughtful, and yet so exasperating. Nate really treats me like I'm clueless. Later, my aunt called, furious. That guy seemed so decent, but turned out to be so fake, and he had the nerve to look down on you for being poor. I'm livid. Good thing I didn't tell him you already own a place in Seaview Heights. Otherwise, he would have just kept pestering me. But a few days later, unbelievably, that same blind date guy actually came to interview at my company. When he saw me, he froze for a second, then put on a fake smile. "Well, if it isn't you, I'm here to interview for a manager role. Who knows, maybe I'll be your boss someday." I nearly burst out laughing. Funny, I thought today's opening was only for a junior project manager. While he was basking in his own smugness, my secretary came running over. Without even glancing at the man grinning beside me, she handed me the interview documents. "President Du, here's today's candidate information for your review." The blind date guy's face twisted in confusion at the title President Du. "What's your position in this company? Some kind of executive? with a monthly salary of only 400? I quickly shot the HR director a look, signaling him to wave it off. Oh, it's just an inside joke among colleagues. You know how nowadays everyone calls celebrities teacher, even if they can't act or barely studied? Same idea. I was pretty proud of my quick thinking. The blind date guy suddenly smiled like he'd figured it out. Ah, makes sense. This is a tech company about to go public. No way someone here would be making so little. I didn't want to waste my time in a one-on-one with him, so I called Nate. What are you doing? Are you busy? Nate, always buried in work, said firmly. Of course I'm busy. 3 online meetings today, plus an in-person tour for visiting executives. What do you think? Forget it then, I said. That blind date guy came here for an interview. I'd rather avoid the headache. Suddenly, Nate's tone shifted. It became serious, commanding. What? That blind date guy? Then I'm coming. Don't move. Wait for me. Wait, aren't you too busy? Didn't you say you had big clients to host? Nate's voice was resolute. He tried to take advantage of you. If he got into the company and caused trouble, how could I let that happen? I need to personally make sure. Within minutes, Nate appeared, looking like he'd just stepped off a Wall Street trading floor. 3-piece suit, polished shoes, hair slicked back, radiating authority. He might as well have been on his way to ring the NASDAQ bell. The HR director was stunned. Didn't Nate come in this morning wearing shorts and a black t-shirt? What just happened? I was stunned too. Who knew? Nate always loved making a dramatic entrance. The interview began. After hearing the blind date guy's self-introduction, Nate asked a series of questions about IT and project management. Each time the guy answered, Nate countered sharply, leaving him stumbling and flustered. By the end, his face was red with embarrassment. Competing with Nate on technical knowledge was just asking for humiliation. Then Nate twirled his pen, his sharp gaze sweeping over me. I suddenly had a bad feeling. His lips curved slightly as he asked the blind date guy. On May 2nd at 9 p.m., you had dinner at a restaurant, didn't you? The man froze, completely thrown off. Then he shot me a fierce glare, thinking I'd tattled on him. I raised my brows. Please, I'm busier than you. Why would I waste time reporting your nonsense? Nate tapped his pen calmly against the desk. That restaurant you skipped out on paying, it's mine. The entire room went silent. Then Nate said evenly, Now, please repay Miss Julie the $230 and apologize to the waitress Tara. I was completely dumbfounded. Since when did Nate own a restaurant? As if buying up land wasn't enough, now he was expanding into food service? The blind date guy's face burned crimson as he shot to his feet, knocking over the chair. I flinched at the noise. Nate also stood, his expression darkening, and the atmosphere in the room instantly grew tense and suffocating. HR even looked ready to quietly call security. Tall, imposing, Nate radiated such force that with just a look, he made the guy back down, step by step. Finally, the man caved. Fine, I'll pay. I just forgot that night because I was in a hurry, that's all. But when he transferred the money back to me, he did it begrudgingly. I'd only taken 5 bites, he'd eaten more than I did. Asking for $230 like that was naked extortion, intolerable. I called him out on the spot. Those 5 bites you took were literally the most expensive bites, the foie gras. You came here on a blind date, but it looks like you were fishing for free meals. I felt better after that, accepted the payment, then immediately deleted him from my contacts. After work, I waited outside Nate's building. Nate, you're heading out tonight? Treat me to dinner. My smile was bright. His mouth tugged upward, but he forced it and straightened his tie like he was being serious. Think about what you plan to treat me to. I was thrilled. I'd just received $230, so I answered, Then I'll take you to a street food stall. I couldn't resist flattering him a little, but at that moment I remembered, you're my boss. If I'm nice to you now, will my raise come next month? The finance director overheard and couldn't help rolling his eyes. You 2 major shareholders, please. If you go eat at a street stall and someone snaps a photo, people will start to suspect our company is in trouble. Can't you go drink an 82 Lafite or eat French escargot instead? We all fell silent. Nate said, I'm allergic to alcohol. I shot back, I'm allergic to all shelled crawling creatures. The finance director hustled us into his car and drove us full speed to the door of a French Michelin restaurant. There's a night view here. Extremely romantic. I proposed to my wife right here. He grinned and then, slyly to Nate. Boss, the payroll timing stunt worked pretty well, huh? Maybe you should give me a raise later. I went momentarily dizzy. Payroll timing stunt? Nate suddenly averted his eyes from mine, coughed, and slammed the car door shut, telling the finance director to get moving. In the elevator, I replayed the day in my head. I remembered precisely. The payroll had been delayed that day. Most employees received their pay in the afternoon. Mine didn't arrive until I was already at dinner. Was he doing it on purpose? If so, why? The elevator doors opened. Nate stepped out first and glanced back when I lagged. Hurry up, what are you dawdling for? He urged. He stood beneath a huge crystal chandelier. Its light scattered across his face, casting jewel-like reflections that somehow made him look even more handsome. Even though I saw him every day, my heart still skipped. He had been the person I'd admired since college. I swallowed the flutter, and once we were seated, I asked directly, Nate, did you intentionally have a counting mess with my paycheck that day? I asked bluntly, with no cushion, no pretense. His hand holding the menu froze. For a moment he looked stunned. Under the lights his pupils seemed deeper than usual. His gaze lingered on my face. My heart felt like it was hoisted by a spider's thread, suspended, fragile, easy to snap, easy to hurt. I never played coy with someone I liked. I couldn't stand being strung along. Every extra second of ambiguity felt like another pang of agony. So I asked him plainly, my expression steady and unflinching, the mask of indifference I'd practiced so well in place. Finally, Nate admitted it. He said, after a breath, I'm sorry. I did it because I was worried you might get targeted by a romance scam. You really see me as that much of an idiot? The more casually I spoke, the tighter Nate's voice became. So tight it bordered on cold. You can't be too trusting. A scammer doesn't come labeled scammer on their face. Sure enough, I'd been wishful thinking, but I couldn't let it go. I pressed him again. Did you really buy that restaurant? Nate answered with a grave face. I'm a major shareholder now. Of course, that's none of your business. I just thought the place was close to the office and you keep going there on blind dates, so it had investment potential. After all, there are so many female employees in our park. He wore an expression like he was pitching to an investor. I rolled my eyes at him. What do you mean, you keep going? I've only been twice. Both times I had no choice, and they were quick in and outs. Nate's expression was like Arctic permafrost, so hard it could blunt a shovel. Exactly, that's why I invested. If you go a third time, make sure they put my name down. What, you trying to sabotage the place? I asked. He shot me an annoyed glare. Fine, what about giving you a discount? Nate and I had that relationship where we only really clicked after a few knocks, no love lost at first. Back in school, there were weirdos on campus. Our campus was way out in the boonies, huge and isolated, and several girls had been followed. One night, I got off my shift late and felt like someone was tailing me. A shadow kept pace at a distance. I clutched my backpack. Just as the figure reached to touch my shoulder, I swung my backpack backhanded and hit him. My Taekwondo black belt hadn't gone rusty. I easily took him down. The young man I pinned to the ground was Nate. He was holding my phone, calling out weakly, "Classmate, your phone fell." I was just trying to return it. I patted my waistband. Oh, my phone fell. When I helped him up, I realized the unlucky kid was absurdly handsome, tall and lean, eyebrows sharp, a face that stuck in my head. Later I learned he was Nate, 3 years older than me. A guy that handsome standing right there, I had to pursue him. I used the apology as an excuse to keep bringing him bubble tea again and again, not just for Nate, but for everyone in his lab. I told my best friend, this is how the city surrounds the countryside. One day I carried bubble teas to find Nate on the lawn beneath the dorms and saw him holding a beautiful girl who was crying while he awkwardly tried to comfort her. They looked so familiar with each other, so matched. I took a step back and stepped on a twig. They both turned and looked at me. When I saw who the girl was, half my heart went cold. It was Rachel, the campus top 10 star, the beauty pageant winner. That night, my friend told me what she'd dug up. Rachel and Nate were from families with long ties. Apparently they were engaged. They'd even rented a place off campus, probably living together. My heart dropped. They were living together and still drinking my bubble tea? Furious, I set out to get answers from Nate, only Rachel beat me to it. She found me first and said Nate couldn't bring himself to say some things, so she would. You're Julie, right? Nate mentioned you. You keep bringing him bubble tea, don't you? Are you some poor junior delivering takeout for him? Her smile hit a knife. She didn't take me seriously at all. Stop bothering him. If you push it, it'll only end poorly for everyone. After that, he once came to me on his own. I've always had a strong sense of pride, so I was afraid he might embarrass me. I rushed to speak first. Senior, honestly, I used to have a bit of interest in your classmate, but it seems like he already has a girlfriend. Ha ha, so you won't be getting any more free bubble tea from me. Nate froze where he stood. His long lashes trembled with emotion, and after a long moment, he finally said hoarsely, "That's fine. Next time, I'll treat you to bubble tea instead." That memory still makes me uncomfortable. Nate ate without much appetite, and I wasn't tasting my food either. We both kept our heads down. Whenever our eyes accidentally met, we looked away instantly, like we'd been shocked. Somehow, eating French cuisine ended up feeling like dining in a college cafeteria. We finished the meal and were about to leave when someone suddenly called Nate's name. He turned his head, and I nearly cracked apart inside. What rotten luck. This restaurant was officially blacklisted for me. It was Rachel. She was wearing a shimmering, modernized cheongsam and 10-centimeter heels. She ran straight up to Nate and threw her arms around him. "Darling, I'm back from abroad." Surprised? Excited? Nate's face darkened immediately. He pushed her away before she could get comfortable, then quickly looked at me with eyes full of panic, wariness, and helplessness all at once. Standing beside Rachel was a handsome man in a suit, probably someone she was still just flirting with. The four of us exchanged polite smiles, but the air between us was tense, full of undercurrents. Rachel said sweetly, "If I'd known you had free time, I would have contacted you as soon as I returned." Then her eyes shifted to me, scrutinizing. "This lady looks familiar." I extended my hand calmly, flashing a smile. "Julie, don't you remember Miss Rachel? You once thought I was a delivery girl." I had to return the favor. Rachel faltered, then looked at Nate with a complicated expression. "So now you and Miss Julie? I didn't expect your taste to change. Funny how you never mentioned me on the phone." How annoying. She'd abandoned Nate to study abroad and stayed away for years. Now that Nate had successfully raised capital and made a name for himself, she waltzed back in, acting like a queen returning to her palace. But after years of working alongside Nate, I'd honed my tongue sharp as a blade. I'd seen all kinds of people, faced all kinds of situations. I was about to retort when Nate, hands usually shoved in his pockets, suddenly reached out and laced his fingers tightly with mine. It wasn't just holding hands. Our fingers were interlocked, no gaps at all, his warmth merging with mine. My heart pounded wildly as I stared straight at him. Nate only gripped my hand tighter, his gaze steady as he looked at them both and said evenly, "Sorry, I've got a date with my girlfriend tonight. Let's catch up another time." Girlfriend? Me? Well, we were business partners after all. If I couldn't even cooperate with him on this, what kind of partner was I? I understood immediately. He was using me as a shield. I didn't like it, but the enemy of my enemy is my ally. I was more than willing to team up with him to strike back at this green tea act. I swept my eyes quickly over their faces. Nate's expression stayed composed, but the faint heat in his palm betrayed him. He was nervous. The tips of his ears were even a little red. Clearly, Rachel's sudden return had shaken him. Do men always react this way to their first love? Rachel teased him slyly. So now that you've got a girlfriend, you forget all about your old friends? I rarely come back, and you can't even make a little time for me? Her words lit my anger like gasoline. I felt physically disgusted. Friends, my ass. Between exes? There's no such thing as obligation. I let out a sharp sigh, then tightened my grip on Nate's arm, clinging like glue. My throat was dry with nerves, but I kept my face perfectly steady. Adults like us, we've all learned to fake it. I forced a polite smile and said, "Sorry, Miss Rachel." When Nate came out of the bathroom, his upper body was bare, water still beating on his skin and running down the lines of his chest. Since when did he secretly build muscles like that? I had nothing left to distract myself with, so I just stared blankly at the only bed in the room. Nate coughed lightly. "So, how are we sleeping tonight?" My heart skipped, and heat rushed to my face again. I blurted out loudly, "I'll crash on the couch, the bed's all yours." Nate had looked a little nervous himself, but my over-the-top reaction made him laugh. He picked up a pillow and set it on the sofa. "You take the bed, I'll sleep here." But the guy's over 6 feet tall, the sofa was way too small. He'd have to scrunch his legs up. When I insisted on taking the sofa instead, Nate looked downright displeased, even threatening me. "Say that again, and your base salary next month stays at 400. "Fine," I relented. But there was only one big quilt. Nate would have nothing to cover himself with. I called the front desk and asked them to send up another blanket. Just as the waiter delivered a single quilt, Rachel happened to open her door across the hall. Could she have timed it that perfectly? Was she eavesdropping again? She glanced at the quilt in my arms and raised an eyebrow. "Huh? Aren't you two in the honeymoon suite? Why would you need an extra single quilt?" My mind went completely blank. I quickly looked at Nate, eyes begging him for help. "Quick, quick, quick, we're about to get exposed." Nate took the quilt calmly and answered, "The bed's a little too small. We just wanted to switch it up. Don't want either of us catching a chill. We're all adults here." Everyone understood instantly. He was so smooth. I hid behind him, ears burning red, my face exploding with heat. When the door shut, we both let out a long breath of relief. My ears were still hot, and even my voice softened. Nate, that was quick thinking. With the lights off, I curled up in the bed while he folded himself onto the sofa. A small night lamp cast a soft glow over his hair. I stared right at him. Suddenly he spoke. "Julie, you haven't called me senior since we graduated." I froze. I'd stopped because that word felt even more intimate than boss. It reminded me of when we first met, all those sweet, heart-fluttering moments. Softly, I said, "We're at work. Calling you senior would feel strange. If I called you that too often, you—" Nate's voice stretched, testing. "I would what?" I forced a laugh. "Calling you boss makes it easier to nag you for a raise." He smiled faintly. "Adam's apple shifting." Then, in a low voice, he said, "Actually, if you called me something else, the raise would come even faster." My throat felt scratchy, like rusted metal. I pulled the quilt up to cover half my face, then asked the question I'd been dreading but couldn't hold back. "Nate, now that Rachel's back, are you going to chase her again?" The room was dark, but I heard his calm reply. "No, I never would. Not before. Not now. Not ever." His decisiveness confused me. Some of our old classmates had even encouraged him to fly to the States to pursue her. They were the golden couple in everyone's eyes. But Nate had always brushed it off, too busy with his startup. Now Rachel's return was no secret. His parents had already called him from back home. In their eyes, Rachel was the perfect match, someone they'd known since childhood. On speaker, right in front of me, they pleaded with him. He said firmly, "Impossible. Give it up." His parents hung up on him in anger. I found myself wondering. Nate was stubborn to the bone. Once he set his mind on something, he stuck to it. If he truly loved Rachel, why did he let her leave the country? Why hadn't he once gone to America all these years? He took vacations. He invited me hiking, rock climbing, even to play arcade games. Why didn't he ever fly across the ocean? The thought left my chest tight and restless. Luckily, the company soon organized a team-building trip to a resort I'd always wanted to visit. When we entered the lobby, I saw the place packed with people. Handsome men, beautiful women everywhere. I was curious. It turned out there was an event going on that day. A high-end singles mixer. Our HR guy was thrilled. He was single too, and his eyes lit up. He grabbed my arm. "Come on, let's sign up. There's even a pool party tonight. 2 people registering together get a discount." He was about to drag me to the counter when Nate walked over. He was wearing a gray linen casual suit that day, drawing plenty of attention. "You haven't even checked in. What are you doing messing around here?" When he heard this was a singles mixer, Nate shot me a sharp glare, clearly displeased. I had no idea why and glared right back, refusing to back down. Just as HR and I were about to pay, Nate stepped in front of me without a second's hesitation. What was he doing? To my shock, he pulled out his card and said to the staff, "Sign all 3 of us up." HR and I stared at him like he'd lost his mind. This was a singles event. Why would he get involved? Nate answered matter-of-factly, 2 people get 20% off. 3 people get 30% off. I'm saving you money. Thank you. I muttered sarcastically. Such a thoughtful boss, truly heartwarming. The staff led us into a side room to fill out forms. Usually you had to list your company, income, things like that. Nate, with his looks and talent, was the rarest resource in the room. My mood soured fast, especially when several young female staff crowded around him asking questions. My irritation spiked to the limit. "Mr. Nate, we need you to fill in your salary range," one of them said politely. I pulled a chair over, sat down deliberately, and said loudly, "Nate makes $2,750 a month." For a moment, Nate's lips pressed together, but the glint in his eyes betrayed his suppressed laughter. "What's so funny? An eye for an eye." The staff looked stunned. They clearly hadn't expected someone like him to have such a low salary. They confirmed again, "Mr. Nate, is your salary really this amount?" "Yes," Nate said smoothly. "That's correct. I make $2,750, but he didn't let me off the hook either." With a sly smile he added, "And she makes $2,800, also monthly." HR stared at us both like we were lunatics. That evening at the party, we were seated off in a corner. Outside, a soft night breeze drifted through the hotel grounds. Nate reached out his hand to me. "Let's go down to the riverbank. It's quieter there." I muttered, "Didn't we sign up just to watch the fun?" But still, I gave him my hand. He pulled me up, but misjudged the force, and I stumbled straight into his arms. His arms tightened around me, and with my cheek pressed against his chest, my heart went wild. Pretending I felt nothing was impossible. His breath brushed my ear, warm. "They're starting the dance. Do you still remember what we learned at school?" We'd once gone to a campus dance together. Both of us, clumsy, stiff, stepping on each other's feet like fools. "I remember," I whispered. "I stepped on you 13 times. Nate chuckled low. "Don't worry, I won't take revenge." Sweet music and the faint scent of incense drifted through the night. Everything was set up for romance. All around us, young men and women sought dance partners. A man walked over and asked, "Excuse me, miss, may I have this dance?" Nate and I had just pulled apart, and my heart was still pounding. Before I could answer, Nate politely replied for me. "Sorry." But before Nate could stop him, the man handed me his card. He nodded politely. "Here's my contact information. Maybe we can be friends sometime." I took the card and smiled. "Sir, I'm in the bracket of making less than $3,000 a month, you know." The man's eyes were gentle. "Salary doesn't decide everything. Miss, don't look down on yourself." I was wearing a dress, no bag on me, nowhere to keep the card. After he walked off, Nate naturally asked, "Want me to hold it for you?" Silently, I passed it to him. Then the music began. Nate extended a hand, inviting me to dance. Sometimes I can't understand whether his possessiveness comes from habit or from genuine feelings. Maybe he's just used to me being by his side, building the company with him from nothing, and he can't accept me moving on to a new life. But if it's love... When the song ended, I took a deep breath, lifted my head and said, "Nate, there's something I need to make clear with you." He looked back at me, his gaze intense. "I have something to say to you too." His eyes burned with focus, and it gave me courage. The mask I'd been wearing for years seemed to corrode under his gaze. It hurt, but in a twisted way. It felt liberating. "These years I've given all my time to the company and to you. I think it's time I step out and try living differently." "Nate, don't you think our relationship has gotten too close?" "Too close how?" "Closer until there are no secrets, close enough to last a lifetime, or so far apart that we're just the coldest superior and subordinate?" His words shook me. "What kind of different life are you talking about? Can you tell me?" Nate's hand suddenly clutched my wrist, urgent. "I to you." He broke off, his expression changing. His eyes weren't on me anymore. I turned to follow his gaze, and an expletive nearly slipped out. Of course. Rachel. Again. Had I wronged her in a past life, dug up her family's grave or something? She was drunk, face flushed, flirting loudly with a group of men. Nate's face hardened instantly. I saw him about to storm over and grabbed his arm, even using some force. "Nate, is it really appropriate for you to go?" That was all I could do to stop him. What else could I say? After all, she was his childhood sweetheart. In every way, he had reason to go. So he gave me an apologetic gesture and said quickly, "Wait a minute, I'll be right back." Then he strode over, pushed through the men without a word, and pulled Rachel away. I stood frozen, vision blurring. Just moments ago my heart had soared. Now it plummeted. I went back alone and drank too much. The alcohol numbed me, plastered back the mask that had just cracked apart. There was always Rachel between us. I was exhausted. Our education always teaches us to persist, to fight, but never to give up. Yet love is the one thing you can't win through sheer effort. The next morning, Nate knocked on my door. "Julie, last night I settled her down and came back for you. Did you fall asleep? Why didn't you answer your phone?" I opened the door, already dressed and made up, false lashes perfectly in place. Thank God for concealer. My face was flawless, not a trace of swelling. Nate looked a little taken aback, even impressed. "You're heading to breakfast now? Together?" I pointed behind him. The man who'd asked me to dance yesterday was waving at me. "Sorry, Nate," I said with a smile. "I have a date." It really wasn't the kind of situation to bring my boss into. While Nate stood frozen, I took Ethan Ching-yi to a Western restaurant. He was a manager at an investment bank, refined in manner, measured in his words and actions. Our conversation flowed easily. After we'd had dinner twice, Ethan offered to drive me home. Before I got out of the car, he confessed his feelings. I stopped him from leaning closer. "Sorry, I think we're better off as friends." The truth was, I didn't feel a flicker of attraction toward him. His eyes dropped in disappointment. Then he said earnestly that he'd wait. "Then let's start as friends, and slowly get to know each other." But when I got out of the car, I saw Nate standing at the gate of my building. Autumn was slipping into winter, and he was wearing nothing but a thin shirt. If he stood out there any longer, he'd definitely catch a cold. Concern almost spilled from my lips, but I forced myself to bite back the words. "Nate, it's 10:30. What important business do you have here at this hour?" Since that night, we'd been locked in a cold war, or maybe it was just me ignoring him. Nate apologized, even waited in line for 2 hours to buy me one of those viral bubble teas and handed it to me. I didn't drink it. When he saw me step out of Ethan's car, he lost his temper and stormed up. "Ethan's character is not good. You can't be with him. You're so controlling. Why should you decide for me?" I snapped, anger flaring. He shoved a stack of papers at me. I flipped them open and froze. It was an investigation report on Ethan. Nate was truly frantic, looking for all the world like a father terrified his daughter might be tricked. His words tumbled out in a rush. "He's been divorced. His first wife was a rich woman. He walked away with half her assets. Now, as an investment manager, he deliberately targets wealthy women like you. More than one has been cheated of both money and feelings. At the resort, he approached you on purpose. The report spells it out clearly." A jolt ran through me, but thinking about it carefully, it wasn't unexpected. Ethan was almost too agreeable, with the slick polish of someone who'd worked in a certain kind of service industry. How much genuine affection had I really seen in his eyes? I wasn't stupid, I could tell. I closed the file and met Nate's urgent gaze. "Thank you for caring, Nate. But I have the right to make mistakes and run into jerks too, don't I?" He looked at me like he didn't understand. "And Rachel, wasn't she a jerk? Yet you still can't forget her. Isn't that how love works, irrational? Why are you dragging her into this again?" I exploded. Sometimes Nate, with all his straight-laced logic, just couldn't connect the dots. "I told you before." His voice grew sharp. "That night I settled her and came straight to you. But when I knocked and texted, you ignored me." "Petty?" I twisted the knife. "She's an adult. She had a few drinks, and you had to babysit her? What next, Nate? If she calls you at midnight, you'll run to her too? What are you, her 24-hour backup service?" Nate opened his mouth to explain. I waited, hoping he'd finally say something real, but he swallowed the words back like he was hiding something. "Rachel wants to join our company," he said instead. "She studied communications in the States and wants the position of PR director." My anger shot through the roof. "What? I'm a shareholder, and you didn't think to tell me this?" Nate pulled out another file. "I'm leaving on a business trip. Her interview's tomorrow. You handle it." Oh, fantastic. I was going to be interviewing my rival. Well then, I had to bring my A-game. That night I booked a spa session, got a full body scrub, fresh styling, the works. The next day, Rachel walked in brimming with confidence. But the moment she saw me sitting at the interviewer's desk, her expression changed completely. "Miss Julie? You as the interviewer? Isn't that a little inappropriate?" I sat down in the lead interviewer's chair and said professionally, "Mr. Nate is on a business trip. I'm the one in charge here. Miss Rachel, do you feel that's inappropriate somehow?" "Different industries are like different worlds," she replied. "I have a master's in communications from Columbia University. If I'm not mistaken, Miss Julie, you studied environmental engineering, didn't you?" So she wanted to wave her degree around. I smiled. "I manage a team of over 100. Plenty of them graduated from Ivy League schools." HR couldn't hold back and added, "From the very beginning, operations and sales have all been under Director Julie's lead. Her results speak for themselves." "Miss Rachel, you came here to interview. How could you not know this? Seems like you don't know her very well at all." Rachel's expression soured. "Someone like me, with high-level qualifications, should be focusing on strategic information. Don't you think?" She was beautiful and had her history with Nate, so she thought she had the offer in the bag. But she hadn't counted on facing both me and HR like twin mountains. Leaning back casually in my chair, I said, "Every company has fewer leaders and more employees. Does that mean leaders should have to master every subject before they can manage their teams?" "Miss Rachel, your thinking is a bit naive." That interview was cathartic for me. Afterward, I called Nate and told him, "She's not suitable." He simply said, "Understood. I trust your professional judgment." I listened carefully to his voice. No displeasure, no resentment. He truly seemed to trust me wholeheartedly. The knot in my chest that had been wound tight for days finally began to loosen. I asked softly, "Nate, you don't think I'm using this to settle personal scores, do you?" His voice came steady over the line. "You might be angry at me, but you wouldn't be angry at the company. And you're a key shareholder. He'd have to cooperate with you in a lot of things. If you can't get along from the start, there's no point forcing it." His words lifted my mood. Honestly, if Rachel had been truly outstanding talent, I would have accepted her. But the reality was her skills didn't match the salary she expected. That was all. Before I hung up, Nate sent me a photo of the sky on WeChat. "What does this look like to you?" he asked. I studied the picture of blue sky and white clouds. A pig's kidney?" He went silent, then scolded me in frustration. "You don't think that looks like a heart?" I exhaled deeply, steadied my tone. "Didn't you once say the only men who could manage you were either a father or a boyfriend? So does that mean a boss doesn't count?" My heart wavered again, trembling like it had back in college. How was it that my feelings only grew wild in this one patch of soil? I steadied my pulse and teased, "But a boss can't pay me a salary for a lifetime." "You were the one who said so." Nate seized the opening. "Then if I stop being your boss and become your boyfriend, would that work?" A few days later, Rachel came to our company again. This time she was representing a major media group as their new deputy editor, here to interview Nate. I didn't want to go. I made excuses, still unsettled after Nate's confession that night. Happiness had come too suddenly, and I felt unprepared to hold it. But the admin director said, "Mr. Nate specifically told me you must attend. Director Julie, don't make things hard for me." So I went to the conference room. The lights were bright, cameras set up. Rachel was in a sharp business suit, throwing me a cold smile. She asked, "Mr. Nate, as one of the hottest rising tech entrepreneurs today, what has been your greatest driving force?" What a boring question. I almost yawned. Obviously the answer would be some cliché like contributing to society or advancing progress. But Nate's eyes flicked, and his gaze passed right over Rachel, landing squarely on me in the back corner. "My greatest motivation in starting this company," his voice rang out clear and strong so everyone could hear, "has been my partner." Then, under the flash of the spotlight, he smiled seriously at me. "And also the person I like, Julie." It was so sudden. Not just me, every employee in the room was stunned. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Then the whole place erupted in cheers. Even Rachel hadn't expected the usually reserved Nate to say something like that. She tried again and again to steer the interview back to neutral ground, but Nate acted as if he didn't hear her at all. I pressed my hand to my mouth, my ribs trembling around my heart, not daring to believe what I'd just heard. He said clearly for everyone to hear, "When I first started this company, getting investment was incredibly hard. You gave up so many good offers and put in all of your savings to support me." It was true. I'd thrown in everything, my savings, even my dowry, into his project. Nate was handsome, plenty of women liked him. A rich heiress had even tried to win his favor by investing in the company, but he'd turned her down flat. I'd been so afraid he would reject me that I'd deliberately stressed, "I'm investing, not because of you. I like someone else, I just believe in your company's future. You'd better make me a lot of money for this." His lips had twitched then, and his ears had flushed red. In the hardest days of the startup, we had so little left in the account that we stayed at a shabby guest house for $80 a night. Power and water would cut out at night. I'd go downstairs to buy water so he could wash his hair. The building was old and dark. On the way back, I'd think, maybe we should give up. I can't drag him through this. He wasn't a girl without choices. If he wanted, he could have taken a stable job. But he never complained, even while memorizing the presentation for the next day's roadshow. Most of it was technical content he knew I hated delivering to clients, so he always took it on himself. I used to think, "Nate, you're really a coward," but now his eyes overflowed with gentleness and his voice shook the room. I had no room to retreat. I had to succeed, for you. Nate didn't even care about the interview anymore. He came straight to me, and under the applause of the staff he solemnly took my hand. "Julie, are you willing to go from shareholder to boss lady?" I burst into tears, nodding as I threw myself into his arms. The chest muscles were mine, the handsome man was mine. Now even the company would be mine. I'd put on extra heavy makeup that morning to face Rachel, a deliberately flashy look. Now it was all smudged from crying. Nate gently wiped my tears and waited for my answer. Choking back sobs, I said, "Then from now on, can I be the one who pays you your salary?" Nate hugged me tighter and said obediently, "Sure. Pay me however much you want." I took a deep breath, wrapped my arms around his neck, and gave him a quick kiss on the face. Then I turned to everyone and announced, "Starting next month, Nate's salary will be only $2,800. Then I corrected myself. "Actually, minimum wage is $1,800. Let's go with that." The employees all groaned and laughed. "Too much PDA, we can't take it anymore." I hugged Nate tighter. Later, I asked him why he hadn't confessed earlier. Nate muttered into the phone, "How could I? You were always saying you didn't like me, that you only invested because you believed in the project, not in me." I didn't dare. I burst out laughing. Turns out being too good at acting is a problem. I cupped his face, full of lingering affection, and kissed him. His breathing went ragged, but after a beat he moved, pressing me down into the soft leather sofa. I sank into it with no strength to resist, just smiling up at him. Nate's hand slid around my waist, pulling me slightly closer so kissing would be easier. Once our relationship was official, everything moved fast. Every day we built the business and fell deeper in love. Life bubbled over with sweetness. I filled his car with all kinds of little stuffed toys. One time an investor got in and burst out laughing. "Nate, why does your car look like Disneyland?" Nate glanced at me in the rearview mirror. I was in the back seat, stifling my giggles. He smiled with those crescent-shaped eyes, indulgent and warm. My girlfriend likes it. She even said she wants our wedding at Disneyland." I never imagined that once we were officially dating, Rachel would go behind our backs to complain. That day was the first day I moved into Nate's place to live together officially. We were curled up on the sofa, picking out furniture, when his parents showed up unannounced, with Rachel in tow. They saw our matching shoes by the door. Nate's mother was furious. "I don't accept this daughter-in-law. I only want Rachel." Nate immediately stepped in front of me. I hadn't known until then that he'd already clashed with his parents over me many times. By now, he was calm in the face of their anger. "Julie is a major shareholder in our company," he said evenly. "Right now she's my boss." He delivered the line without mercy, a direct hit to his parents. "So please don't interfere and offend my boss." Faced with such hard reality, his parents deflated. In the face of absolute interest, they had nothing to say. I poured hot tea for his mother, but she plopped onto the sofa and refused to drink. Nate took the cup from me and drank it himself. Still unwilling, his mother said, "I watched Rachel grow up. She's like a daughter to me. Nate, what's wrong with her? You two have known each other for so many years. Any little misunderstandings should have been cleared up long ago." Even Nate's father joined in. "That's right. Rachel went to the US for her studies. Anyone can understand that. Rachel sat there, putting on her best pitiful act. Auntie, let it go. Nate must still be mad at me. Don't make things harder for him. What was that supposed to mean? That Nate was with me just to spite her? She sure thought highly of herself. I'm not mad at you, Rachel, Nate said calmly, setting the cup down. He just wanted to end the farce. He turned to everyone. It's impossible between us because you don't actually like me, and I don't like men. What? I was stunned. The information in that one sentence was like a bomb. Rachel shot to her feet as if poked in a sore spot. Nate, what nonsense are you spouting? You cannot like me, but don't slander me. Is it slander? You know in your heart, Nate replied, his tone still flat. I don't think it's shameful. Being honest about your preferences is fair to everyone. All these years I've been covering for you. In college, you rented an apartment off campus with a senior from your department under my name. I said nothing. That time you broke up with your girlfriend, you came crying to me. Julie saw us when she and I were still in an ambiguous stage. You said you'd help explain, but what you actually said, you know. You made Julie and me misunderstand each other for so long. You wanted me as your decoy, an excellent boyfriend, an excellent husband, so you could have both love and face in society. That's fine, but I'm under no obligation to keep helping you. After saying this, Nate didn't give anyone a chance to react. He grabbed my hand and pulled me out, leaving Rachel and his parents staring at each other. In the car, he even leaned over and fastened my seatbelt thoughtfully. You two never lived together, I asked softly. Then why did you shield her so much? Nate sighed, frustrated. Haven't you noticed? Even in the hottest weather, Rachel never wears short sleeves. I thought about it. It was true. But what did that have to do with anything? In 3rd grade, Nate said quietly, we were playing with firecrackers. I was being reckless and caused an accident. The firecracker exploded, and she was severely burned. Later, when she dated girls, she said she was too self-conscious to be with men. I don't know psychology. I don't even know if that's just an excuse. But I've always felt I owed her. My parents always said our family owed her. So from childhood on, whenever she wanted something, we tried to give it. He paused. I used to really think you liked someone else. That's why I never told you all this. Now she's back in the country, still unwilling to be honest with her family, still looking for a husband who knows everything about her and can play along. No wonder he'd tried to break us up. No wonder at that matchmaking event, Nate had marched in and dragged the guy away, not letting him hurt anyone else. But this time it had gone too far. Nate had his own life. How could she keep using him over and over? After everything was finally out in the open, his parents never came after me again. Later, we bought a new place near the company, a 3-bedroom, 1-living-room apartment. In Nate's words, too big is bad. If relatives come, we'll have an excuse to put them up in a hotel. He didn't have much stuff, so he moved in easily. I, on the other hand, had so much that even just my clothes barely fit in the moving van. As we unpacked, our things were all mixed together. While sorting through the pile, I noticed he had a huge box. It was big but surprisingly light. I shook it a little, planning to ask him about it, but saw he was still busy setting up the bedroom. Curiosity won. I opened it. Inside were dozens of milk tea cups. The packaging looked so familiar. They were from that shop I used to buy from back then. Each bottle from that store came with a different printed blessing. Every time I carried a bag into the lab, I'd secretly pick the best blessing to give to Nate. I'd liked him then. I'd wanted to give him the best of everything in the world. And he'd saved them, cleaned and kept them all this time. My throat tightened, my nose burned. All these years, I thought I'd been secretly in love, but he'd been loving me too. I rushed into the kitchen and wrapped my arms around Nate's waist from behind. What's wrong? He asked, startled. He turned and pulled me into his arms. I thought of all those years, our relentless effort, our persistence. Somewhere along the line, every tiny thing we'd done had finally borne fruit. I wiped at my tears and said coyly, nothing. I just suddenly want some milk tea. Nate met my eyes. He'd seen the open box. He knew why I was crying. He leaned his forehead against mine, his gentle eyes reflecting both time and me in this moment. All right, he said softly. Let's go to that milk tea shop by the school today. When we returned to the old milk tea shop by campus, nothing seemed to have changed. The faded sign, the sweet smell drifting from the foggy glass windows, the line of students waiting their turn. But for me, everything was different. I looked at the new bottles on the shelves, each still printed with a small blessing. Back then, I secretly chose the best one for him, hoping he'd receive all the good things in the world. Now I realized it wasn't those words on the bottles that brought us luck. It was the way we pushed through every hardship together that made it possible for us to stand side by side today. Nate handed me a cup and smiled, gentle as sunlight breaking through old memories. Julie, from now on, it won't just be the blessings on these bottles that belong to you. I'll give you every good thing I can. I held the cup and took a sip. The sweetness spread across my tongue and sank deep into my heart. I once thought love was a prison with no release date, but today I understood. When two people hold hands through every challenge, love is the greatest freedom. Smiling, I leaned against his shoulder and whispered, "Nate, let's go home." And this time, home wasn't just an empty apartment. It was a place with him, with me, and with the future we were building together.